Hello, this is the 251st edition of Catch of the Day, available on the Branch Talk YouTube channel. Today we're going to read from a book written by Trent Wilde entitled Mosaic Torah. Starting at the top or midsection of page 3, we read Conclusive Facts. Knowing that the Torah does not claim Moses as its author is important, but it doesn't ultimately answer our question. In order to do that, we need to move on from what the Torah does not say to what it does say. In fact, we have already considered our first example, the Torah's consistent use of the third-person language when referring to Moses. This language strongly indicates that the words of the Torah are not the words of Moses. They are the words of someone else, concerning Moses and concerning others. This example of what the Torah does say is hugely important. It is not an obscure feature of an isolated passage. It is the consistent and pervasive reality of the Torah's own portrayal of Moses as someone other than its author. From this fact alone, one could justifiably conclude that the Torah was not written by Moses, nor does it pretend to be. Sometimes we forget the importance of starting with the facts and then forming our beliefs to match those facts. It is so easy to believe something without weighing the evidence first. We may hear an idea that we happen to like, or from someone we trust, and conclude that that idea must be correct. These are fallacies we have all committed at one point or another, and so it shouldn't be a surprise to find out that we have some beliefs that aren't grounded in fact. The important thing is to be willing to reevaluate our beliefs in light of the evidence. Once we become aware that we formed them without sufficient backing. To not do this would be to shift the burden of proof away from ourselves, when in fact we still have it. We need to realize that it is not responsible to start with a cherished belief as our default and then to demand proof that it is false in order to give it up. One could believe any number of unsupported and untrue theories using that method. You could even believe that a duplicate of Donald Trump lives in an Earth simulating capsule, hidden in the core of Jupiter. No one could prove your belief wrong, but that wouldn't make it true, and it wouldn't make it reasonable to subscribe to that belief. The lesson here is that the only honest way to handle our beliefs is to require ourselves to have sufficient evidence upon which to base them before forming them. The truth is, no one could start with the facts of the Torah and honestly conclude from those facts that it was written by Moses. Still, the Mosaic authorship of the Torah is a deeply ingrained and cherished belief for many, and it can be difficult to let go of holding it as the default position. For those struggling to change their way of handling beliefs, but who ultimately care about truth, it can be helpful to see evidence that what they have assumed to be true actually isn't. For their sake, and for everyone who cares about evidence, here are some example passages in Torah which simply could not have been written by Moses. Passage: Genesis 11, 28 and 31. And Haran died in the presence of Terah, his father, in the land of his birth, in Ur of the Chaldees. Then Terah took his son Abram, and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together they went from Ur of the Chaldeans, to go to the land of Canaan. Comment. It has long been known that Ur was not ruled by the Chaldeans in the days of Terah and Abram. This isn't to say that Abram did not come from Ur, only that the author used the qualifier of the Chaldeans for the sake of clear communication with his or her audience, since the Chaldeans ruled Ur at the time of writing. What is most relevant here is the fact that Moses could not have been the one to make this clarification. As a distinct people, the Chaldeans appeared in the 9th century BC. Moses' life is usually dated to around the 16th to 13th centuries BC, and certainly could not be as late as the 9th century, since that is past the time of David and Solomon. Moses could not have referred to the Chaldeans, since in his day there were no Chaldeans to refer to. Taken from a book, author, Bible Dictionary, C. Chaldean History. That is a footnote. Genesis 12:6. And Abram went through the land as far as Shechem, at the oak of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The phrase, "at that time the Canaanites were in the land," refers to a circumstance which is in the past from the perspective of the author. This indicates that the Canaanites were no longer in the land when this was written. As all who know the story of Moses are aware, the Canaanites were in the land for the entire duration of Moses' life. Thus Moses could not have referred to the Canaanites living in the land as a reality of the past. Genesis 13:7. And so there were disputes between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen at that time. The Canaanites and the Perizzites were in the land. The same principle applies here as in the previous example. Genesis 36, verse 31. And these were the kings who reigned in the land of Edom, before any king reigned over the children of Israel. Someone could only write that a past event happened before any king reigned over the children of Israel if they lived at a time after kings had already begun to reign over the children of Israel. This should be as obvious as the fact that nobody could write that a past event happened before there were presidents of the United States unless they lived at a time during which the United States had already had presidents. Since Moses lived and died before any king ruled over Israel, he simply could not have written this. Quite interesting. Take care.